When the poor boy approached Dom Reeves at his son's grave and said, "Sir, they're in the dump," Dom had no idea those 5 words would lead him to discover a truth so devastating and so redemptive that his entire understanding of the last 6 months would shatter and rebuild itself into something he could finally live with. But we need to go back to the beginning, back to when Dom was the undefeated champion of the professional racing circuit, when his son Charlie was alive and laughing, when life made sense and the future stretched ahead like an open road with no obstacles. Back to before everything ended. 6 months earlier, Dominic Reeves had everything a man could want at 38. A championship racing career, endorsement deals worth millions, a beautiful home in the hills outside Nashville, and most importantly, his 7-year-old son Charlie, who thought his dad hung the moon and stars. Charlie had his mother's blonde hair and Dom's dark eyes, and he was obsessed with racing. He knew every car in his dad's collection, could identify engine sounds, and spent hours in the garage watching Dom work on vehicles with the focused intensity of someone who'd found their calling early. "When I grow up, I'm gonna be faster than you, Dad," Charlie would say with absolute certainty. "I don't doubt it, buddy," Dom would respond, ruffling his hair. "You've got the instincts, just promise me you'll be smart about it." Fast and smart. That's the combination that keeps you alive. Dom's ex-wife Nicole had died when Charlie was 3. Cancer, brutal, and fast. Since then, it had been just Dom and Charlie against the world, and Dom had poured everything into being both parents, both protector and provider, both teacher and best friend. That Saturday in March, Dom had a race in Atlanta, an important one. Championship implications, the kind of race that required complete focus. Charlie had begged to come along. "Please, Dad, I'll be so good. I'll stay with Uncle Marcus the whole time, I promise." Dom had hesitated. Charlie usually stayed with his grandmother during race weekends, but she'd been sick with the flu. Marcus, Dom's crew chief and oldest friend, had volunteered to watch him. "Okay," Dom had agreed, "but you stay in the pit area. No wandering, Marcus is in charge." "Yes, thank you, Dad." Charlie had hugged him so tight Dom's ribs hurt. The race was going perfectly. Dom was in second place, stalking the leader, waiting for his moment. 3 laps to go. The crowd was roaring. Dom could taste victory. Then Marcus's voice crackled through his radio, panicked in a way Dom had never heard. "Dom, you need to come in. Now. It's Charlie." Everything after that existed in fragments, nightmare pieces that Dom couldn't assemble into coherent memory. Charlie had wandered away from the pit area despite his promise. A drunk driver in the parking lot accelerating erratically, Charlie in the wrong place at the wrong time, the impact, the ambulance, the hospital. The doctor's face when he said, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." Dom had held his son's hand as the machines were turned off, had whispered, "I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry," over and over until Marcus physically pulled him away. The funeral was a blur. The racing community came out in force. Drivers, crew members, sponsors, all trying to offer comfort that couldn't reach him. Dom stood at the gravesite in his racing suit, unable to change, unable to accept that his 7-year-old son was in that small casket. "It should have been me," he'd said to Marcus. "I should have been watching him." "It was an accident, Dom. A terrible, terrible accident. You can't blame yourself." But Dom did blame himself. He blamed himself for bringing Charlie to the race, for not insisting he stay with his grandmother, for being on the track focused on winning instead of protecting his son. He retired from racing that day, walked away from everything, the sponsors, the team, the career he'd built over 20 years. He sold his house because every room held memories he couldn't bear. He moved into a small apartment near the cemetery where Charlie was buried because he couldn't stand to be far away. The racing community tried to help. Friends called. Marcus showed up with food and concern, but Dom couldn't face any of them. Their pity felt like judgment, their concern like accusation. He spiraled, started drinking, stopped eating properly. His sole routine became visiting Charlie's grave every evening, bringing fresh flowers, talking to his son like he could hear, crying until there were no tears left. 6 months passed this way, Dom existing but not living, surviving but not healing, maintaining the bare minimum of functionality while drowning in guilt and grief. Present day. It was a Thursday evening when the boy approached. Dom was kneeling at Charlie's grave, a small headstone with a racing flag engraved on it and the words, "Our little champion, forever in the lead." He'd brought Charlie's favorite toy, a red race car, and placed it beside the fresh flowers. "I'm sorry, buddy," Dom whispered, his voice breaking like it did every time. "I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have." "Sir?" Dom turned, startled. A boy stood about 6 feet away, maybe 10 or 11 years old, skinny, wearing clothes that were clean but obviously too small and worn thin. He carried a plastic bag full of collected cans, the universal sign of poverty-level survival. "I'm sorry to bother you," the boy said quietly, respectfully, "but I've seen you here before, every night almost, and He hesitated. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for your loss. Was that your son?" Dom couldn't speak. He nodded. "I thought so. I bring flowers sometimes too." The boy gestured to a grave 3 rows over, another small stone. "My little sister. She was 6. Leukemia." "I'm sorry," Dom managed the automatic response. "It's okay. Well, it's not okay, but..." The boy trailed off, then seemed to gather courage. "Sir, can I ask you something about your son? What about him? Did he like cars? I saw the race car you left, and the flag on the stone. He loved them, wanted to be a racer like his dad." Dom's voice cracked. "Like I was." If you love stories where unexpected encounters lead to life-changing discoveries, subscribe and don't miss what happens next. "I thought so." The boy shifted his bag of cans. "Sir, I need to tell you something. It might be none of my business, but I think you need to know about the dump." Dom frowned, confused. "What dump?" "The city dump, out on Route 9. The boy looked uncomfortable, like he was about to break bad news. "Sir, they're in the dump. I go there sometimes to look for cans and recyclables. And I found things. Things with your son's name on them. And with your name. Race things, trophies and pictures and... Sir, there's so much stuff. Like someone threw away a whole life." Dom felt ice flood his veins. "What are you talking about?" I think someone who knew your son threw away his things. Or your things. I don't understand why. But there's boxes and boxes of stuff. I recognized the name from this gravestone when I walked past it last week." The boy looked up at Dom with eyes far too wise for his age. "I thought you should know. In case you didn't want them to be gone." Dom stood on shaking legs. "Show me. Please. Show me where." The boy's name was Miguel, and he led Dom to the city dump in his beat-up pickup truck, sitting in the passenger seat with his bag of cans at his feet. "I live near here," Miguel explained as they drove. "With my mom and my 2 little brothers. We don't have much, so I collect cans after school. Makes maybe $20 a week if I'm lucky. Helps with groceries." Dom felt shame wash over him. Here was this kid, dealing with poverty and grief, still collecting cans to help his family, while Dom had spent 6 months wallowing in self-pity, ignoring everyone who tried to help. "Your sister," Dom said quietly. "How long ago?" 2 years. She was sick for a long time. We knew it was coming, but that doesn't make it easier, you know?" Miguel looked out the window. "Mom says grief doesn't have a timeline, that everyone heals at their own pace, but I think sometimes grief becomes comfortable. Like it hurts, but at least it's familiar. And moving forward feels like forgetting them." The wisdom of it struck Dom silent. They reached the dump just before it closed, a sprawling wasteland of discarded lives and forgotten possessions. Miguel led him to a section near the back, where recent deposits were piled before being processed. "Over here," Miguel said, climbing over a pile of broken furniture. "I saw them yesterday and thought, sir, are you okay?" Dom had frozen, staring at what lay before him. Boxes, Dozens of boxes, torn open by weather and scavengers, their contents spilling across the garbage heap. And in those boxes, Charlie's entire life. His toys, his clothes, his books, the drawings he'd made in school, his trophies from Little League Baseball, the photo albums Dom had kept since Charlie's birth, the racing memorabilia Charlie had collected, signed posters, miniature cars, programs from every race he'd attended, and Dom's things too, his own trophies, championship plaques, photographs of victories, the leather jacket Charlie had loved to wear when pretending to be a racer, the helmet Dom had promised to give Charlie when he turned 16. Everything. Everything that mattered. Everything that held memory, thrown away like garbage. Who would do this? Dom whispered, falling to his knees in the trash, pulling out a photo of Charlie grinning at his 4th birthday party. Who would throw away his life? Miguel knelt beside him. I don't know, sir, but we can save them if you want. We can pull everything out before it gets buried. For the next 2 hours as the sun set and the dump's night lights came on, Dom and Miguel worked. They loaded box after box into Dom's truck, water damaged but salvageable, broken but mendable. The physical labor was cathartic, each saved item a small redemption. The dump manager appeared as they were finishing. You can't take that stuff. It's been deposited, which means it's ours now. It's mine, Dom said, his voice hard. It's my son's belongings and mine. Someone threw them away without my permission. Who deposited this? Miguel asked the manager. Do you have records? The manager checked his clipboard, annoyed. Deposit was made 6 weeks ago. Name on the ticket is. He paused, frowning. Marcus Thompson, paid for large item disposal. Dom felt like he'd been punched. Marcus, my Marcus. Don't know about your Marcus. Just know that's the name on the form. Dom drove back to Miguel's neighborhood in silence, his mind spinning. Marcus, his best friend, his crew chief, the man he'd trusted with Charlie's safety that day, had thrown away Charlie's belongings. Maybe there's an explanation, Miguel offered quietly. Maybe he thought he was helping? Helping? By throwing away my son's life? Maybe he thought you needed to let go. People do stupid things when they're trying to help someone who's grieving. Miguel looked at Dom seriously. But you should ask him. Before you get angry, ask him why. Dom dropped Miguel off at a rundown apartment complex, pressing $100 into the boy's hand despite his protests. For helping me, Dom insisted. And for having the courage to tell me the truth when you could have stayed quiet. Thank you, sir. Miguel clutched the money like it was treasure. And sir, your son, Charlie, I think he'd want you to live again. Not just survive, really live. That's what I'm trying to do for my sister. Live enough for both of us. Dom watched the boy disappear into his apartment, carrying his bag of cans and his wisdom, then drove straight to Marcus's house. Marcus answered the door in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, his expression shifting from surprise to resignation when he saw Dom's face. You found them, Marcus said quietly. At the dump. Why? Dom's voice shook with controlled fury. Why would you throw away my son's things, his memories, his entire life? Because you were dying, Dom. Marcus's voice was equally intense. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. You cut off everyone who cared about you. You stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped living. I went to your apartment 3 weeks ago and you hadn't changed clothes in days. You were just existing in this tomb of grief, surrounded by Charlie's things, drowning in guilt. That wasn't your decision to make. You're right, it wasn't. Marcus ran his hand over his face, exhausted. But I didn't know what else to do. I thought if the physical reminders were gone, you'd have to face forward, have to start healing. I thought I was helping. You had no right. I know. Marcus's control cracked. I know I had no right. And the second I did it, I knew it was wrong. But Dom, I watched you die a little more every day for 6 months. I was the one who was supposed to watch Charlie that day, and I failed, and I've lived with that guilt every single day. But at least I'm still living. You're just haunting your own life." The truth of it cut through Dom's anger. "I don't know how to live without him. None of us know how, but we do it anyway. We do it because they'd want us to, because surviving is how we honor them." Marcus's eyes were wet. "I'm sorry I threw away his things. I'm sorry I made that choice without asking you. But I'm not sorry for trying to save your life, even if I did it wrong." Dom sagged against the doorframe. "I have to go through the boxes, sort everything, figure out what can be saved. I'll help you, if you'll let me." They loaded the boxes into Marcus's garage, a larger space than Dom's apartment. As they sorted through water-damaged photos and mud-caked toys, Marcus spoke quietly. "That day at the track, I've replayed it 1,000,000 times. Charlie asked if he could go to the bathroom. I said yes, told him to come right back, but I got distracted. A rookie driver was asking questions, and I turned away for maybe 2 minutes. When I looked back, he was gone." "It wasn't your fault," Dom said, surprising himself. "Charlie was stubborn. He probably saw something interesting and wandered. He was 7. That's what 7-year-olds do." "Then why can't you forgive yourself for bringing him to the race?" Dom had no answer. They worked until midnight, salvaging what they could. By the end, they had 3 boxes of restored memories, photographs carefully dried, toys cleaned, trophies polished. As Dom prepared to leave, Marcus said, "The boy who told you about the dump, who was he?" "Miguel. Lives in the poor neighborhood near the cemetery. Collects cans to help his family. Lost his little sister 2 years ago." Dom paused. "He's smarter than both of us combined. Told me grief becomes comfortable because at least it's familiar. Wise kid." "Yeah." Dom looked at the boxes in his truck. "Marcus, I need to do something. For him. For his family. Charlie would have wanted that." Dom spent the weekend sorting through Charlie's restored belongings, and with each item he felt something shift inside him. Not healing, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. A door opening to let light into the darkness. Monday morning he drove to Miguel's neighborhood. The apartment complex was worse in daylight. Peeling paint, broken playground equipment, the defeated air of a place where people survived rather than thrived. Dom found Miguel's apartment on the 2nd floor, knocking softly. A tired-looking woman in her 30s answered, suspicion immediately crossing her face. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Ramirez? I'm Dom. Your son Miguel helped me this week and I wanted to thank him." Recognition flickered. "Miguel? What did he do?" "Nothing wrong, I promise. He showed me kindness when I needed it desperately." "Is he home?" Miguel appeared behind his mother, eyes widening. "Mr. Reeves, hi. Can I talk to you?" Dom asked. "You and your mom both?" Inside the small apartment, Dom met Miguel's 2 younger brothers, 7 and 5, watching cartoons on a battered TV. The space was immaculate despite its poverty, everything worn but clean, the kind of home maintained by someone who refused to let circumstances defeat their dignity. Dom explained the situation to Miguel's mother, how her son had found Charlie's belongings, how he'd had the courage and compassion to tell a grieving stranger, how his wisdom had started to pull Dom from his spiral of guilt. "Miguel is special," Dom said, "and I'd like to do something for your family if you'll allow it." "We don't need charity," Mrs. Ramirez said carefully. "This isn't charity. This is..." Dom searched for the right words. "My son loved cars and racing. He wanted to help people. He had this huge heart, and if he were still alive, he'd want me to help someone like Miguel. So this is honoring Charlie. Will you let me do that?" Over the next hour, Dom learned their story. Mrs. Ramirez was a single mother. Her husband had left when the medical bills from their daughter Rosa's cancer became overwhelming. She worked 2 jobs as a home health aide, barely making enough to cover rent and food. Miguel collected cans not for spending money but for necessities like school supplies. The 2 younger brothers wore Miguel's hand-me-downs. Rosa's medical debt still hung over them like a shadow despite her death. "I'm managing," Mrs. Ramirez insisted. "We're okay." But Dom could see they weren't okay. They were surviving through sheer force of will and love, the way he'd been surviving, but they were doing it with more grace and less self-pity than he'd managed. "I want to pay off Rosa's medical debt," Dom said. "And I want to set up an education fund for Miguel and his brothers and—" He looked at Miguel directly. "I want to offer Miguel a job." "A job?" Miguel's eyes widened. "I need help sorting through my son's things, restoring what can be saved, organizing memories. It's hard work, emotional work, but you've already proven you can handle it. I'll pay you $15 an hour, flexible schedule around school. You'll be helping me heal while earning honest money. What do you think?" Miguel looked at his mother, who looked overwhelmed. "That's too much." "It's exactly right," Dom said firmly. "Miguel helped save my life last week. This is me trying to help save his future." Mrs. Ramirez cried. Miguel hugged his mother. The younger brothers didn't fully understand, but felt the shift in their home's atmosphere, from desperate survival to something that might eventually feel like hope. Over the following weeks, Miguel came to Marcus's garage 3 afternoons a week. Together, he and Dom sorted through Charlie's belongings, photographs into albums, toys into organized boxes, trophies onto shelves. They talked while they worked. "Tell me about Rosa," Dom would say, and Miguel would share stories about his little sister, her laugh, her bravery during treatment, the way she'd made friendship bracelets for all her nurses. "Tell me about Charlie," Miguel would ask, and Dom would talk about his son, his obsession with racing, his terrible jokes, the way he'd narrated every car ride like he was a professional commentator. The work was cathartic. With each restored memory, Dom felt less like he was drowning in guilt and more like he was building a memorial, not a tomb, but a celebration of a life that had been too short but undeniably meaningful. Marcus noticed the change. "You're talking again, like really talking, not just existing." "Miguel's a good listener," Dom said, "and a good teacher. He's teaching me how to carry grief without letting it carry me." Dom started attending a grief support group, something he'd refused before. He started eating regularly. He began running in the mornings, feeling his body come back to life after months of neglect. And he started visiting Charlie's grave with something other than pure anguish. He'd bring Miguel sometimes, and the two of them would sit between Rosa's and Charlie's gravestones, two survivors of different tragedies finding common ground in loss and love. "Do you think they'd be friends?" Miguel asked once. "If they were still here?" "I think they'd be best friends," Dom said. "Charlie would have loved your sister's creativity. Rosa would have loved Charlie's energy." "They're probably friends now," Miguel said with the certainty of someone who needed to believe. "Somewhere better than here, racing around or making bracelets or whatever kids do in heaven." Dom found comfort in that image. 3 months after Miguel had approached him at the cemetery, Dom made a decision. He called a meeting with his former racing team, the sponsors, the crew, the people he'd cut off in his grief. "I want to come back," he announced. "Not to race. I'm done with that. But I want to use my name, my platform, my connections to start a foundation. The Charlie Reeves Memorial Foundation, dedicated to helping families dealing with childhood loss, medical debt relief, grief counseling, education funds, whatever they need." The room was silent for a moment. Then Marcus grinned. "Took you long enough." "I needed someone to show me the way back," Dom said, thinking of a skinny kid with a bag of cans and wisdom beyond his years. The foundation launched 6 months later. Dom threw himself into the work with the same intensity he'd once devoted to racing. He raised money, partnered with hospitals and grief organizations, created support systems for families drowning in medical debt and emotional trauma. And Miguel, now 13, still collecting cans but saving for college instead of groceries, became the foundation's first youth ambassador, sharing his story of loss and resilience at fundraising events. "You changed my life," Dom told him once. "You changed mine too," Miguel responded. "We saved each other." The foundation's success brought Dom back into the public eye, which brought both opportunity and complications. A documentary filmmaker wanted to tell Charlie's story and the foundation's mission. Dom agreed. seeing it as a way to reach more families in need. The filming started in the spring, exactly 1 year after Charlie's death. During an interview, the director asked about the day of the accident. Dom had avoided talking about it publicly, but something about the anniversary made him willing to try. Charlie begged to come to that race, Dom said, cameras rolling. I said yes because I wanted to share what I loved with my son. I wanted him to see me win. I thought, his voice cracked. I thought I had time to teach him everything, time to watch him grow up, time to be the dad he deserved. You always think you have time. The interview was emotional, but cathartic. Dom felt like he was finally able to tell Charlie's story without being destroyed by guilt. Then a week later, Marcus called with news that changed everything. Dom, you need to see something. The police found new evidence about Charlie's accident. They met at the police station where Detective Williams pulled out a file. Mr. Reeves, we've reopened the investigation into your son's death. The driver who hit Charlie was arrested for DUI that day, but new evidence suggests there may have been additional factors. What kind of factors? Witness statements we didn't have at the time, security footage that was initially overlooked, and testimony from someone who was at the track that day, someone who saw what actually happened. Detective Williams looked grim. Mr. Reeves, your son didn't wander off. He was following someone. Dom felt cold. What? One of your crew members, a mechanic named Todd Brennan. He'd been drinking, got into an argument with track security, and stormed off into the parking lot. Charlie saw him and apparently tried to follow, maybe to check if he was okay. When the drunk driver came through, Charlie was in the parking lot because he was trying to help someone. Dom sat heavily. So it wasn't random. He wasn't just wandering. No, sir. He was being the kind, concerned kid you raised him to be. And unfortunately, that kindness put him in the wrong place at the wrong time. Marcus swore softly. Todd? He never said anything. He quit the team the week after the accident, Detective Williams said. We're trying to locate him now for a formal statement, but Mr. Reeves, I wanted you to know. Your son's death wasn't because you brought him to the race or because anyone failed to watch him closely enough. It was a tragic convergence of circumstances, but none of it was your fault. Dom couldn't process it. For a year, he'd carried crushing guilt, believing he'd failed his son by not protecting him, and now he was being told that Charlie's death was the result of his son's own compassionate nature, his desire to help someone who seemed upset. He was trying to help, Dom whispered. Of course he was. That's exactly what Charlie would do. Outside the police station, Marcus gripped Dom's shoulder. You've been carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. Do you understand that? I don't know what I understand. Dom felt unmoored, like the narrative he'd built his grief on had just crumbled. If it wasn't my fault, then whose fault is it? The drunk driver's? Todd's for being irresponsible? Life's for being unfair? Maybe it's nobody's fault, Marcus said quietly. Maybe it's just a tragedy, a horrible, senseless tragedy that no amount of blame can fix or explain. Dom drove to the cemetery, needing to tell Charlie what they'd learned. He found Miguel already there, sitting between the two small graves, doing homework. Hey, Mr. Reeves, Miguel greeted him. I had some time after school. Dom sat beside him and told him everything, about the new evidence, about Todd, about the revelation that Charlie had died trying to help someone. That makes sense, Miguel said when Dom finished. From everything you've told me about him, Charlie was the kind of kid who saw someone in trouble and wanted to fix it. He got that from you. I didn't teach him that. His mother, you taught him that, Miguel insisted. By starting the foundation, by helping my family, by turning your grief into something that helps other people. You taught him that pain can become purpose if you're brave enough. He paused. But now you have to teach yourself the same thing about this guilt. You have to let it go. How? Dom asked desperately. If it wasn't my fault, then I've spent a year destroying myself for nothing. And if it was his nature, his goodness that put him in danger, then you raised an incredible kid who died exactly as he lived, trying to help someone. Miguel's voice was firm, mature beyond his 13 years. Mr. Reeves, I used to blame myself for Rosa's death too. I thought if I'd prayed harder, or been a better brother, or somehow loved her more perfectly, she wouldn't have died. But my mom finally made me understand. Love isn't a magical shield. Bad things happen to good people, and good kids die even when they're loved fiercely. It's not fair, but it's true. Dom absorbed this, feeling something crack open in his chest. Not pain this time, but release. The documentary, he said suddenly. They're doing a follow-up interview next week. I could tell this story, about learning Charlie died trying to help someone, about how that's both devastating and beautiful. You should, Miguel agreed. Other parents need to hear that loving your kids perfectly still doesn't protect them from the world. They need permission to forgive themselves. But when Dom arrived at the documentary interview the following week, he found unexpected trouble waiting. Todd Brennan had seen the news about the reopened investigation, and he'd shown up to the filming, drunk and belligerent, demanding to tell the real story. "You want to blame someone?" Todd shouted at Dom in the parking lot, cameras still rolling. "Blame me. I'm the one who was drunk. I'm the one who stormed off. I'm the one your kid was following when he got hit. I killed Charlie, not you." Dom faced him, this broken man carrying his own unbearable guilt. "You were irresponsible, you made bad choices, but you didn't drive the car that hit my son. You didn't kill him. But if you hadn't, some other circumstance would have existed. Charlie was 7 and curious and compassionate. That's who he was. Maybe he would have wandered off anyway. Maybe he would have seen a stray dog and followed it. Maybe he would have tripped on his shoelaces and been in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time." Dom's voice was steady now, certain. "We can play what if forever, Todd. Or we can accept that sometimes terrible things happen and blame doesn't bring anyone back." Todd collapsed against a car, sobbing. "I can't live with this." "Then don't live with it alone." Dom pulled out his phone, showing Todd the Foundation's website. "We have grief counseling, support groups, resources for people carrying impossible guilt. Let me help you the way Charlie would have wanted to help you that day." Security footage from the interview went viral, not the planned documentary content, but this raw moment of forgiveness between two men, destroyed by the same tragedy. Within days, Dom was fielding calls from other parents, other survivors, other guilt carriers who saw themselves in Todd's pain and Dom's grace. The narrative shifted. The Foundation became not just about helping families with medical debt, but about helping anyone touched by traumatic loss, the secondary victims, the witnesses, the people who survived but couldn't forgive themselves. And Dom realized that Miguel had been right all along. Pain could become purpose, but only if you were brave enough to transform it. The expanded Foundation work was rewarding, but exhausting. Dom threw himself into it with relentless intensity. Fundraising events, support groups, media interviews, crisis counseling for families in acute grief. "You're going to burn out," Marcus warned during a board meeting. "You can't save everyone." "I have to try," Dom responded, "for Charlie." But Marcus was right. 6 months after the documentary's release, Dom was running on fumes, sleeping 4 hours a night, missing meals, pushing through exhaustion with sheer determination. Miguel noticed first. "Mr. Reeves, you look terrible." "Thanks, kid, always honest." "I'm serious. You're doing the same thing you did after Charlie died, just in a different direction. You're still trying to run from grief instead of living with it." "I'm not running. I'm honoring his memory." "By destroying yourself?" Miguel's voice was sharp. "How does that honor anything? Charlie would want you to be happy, not just productive." Dom wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because deep down he knew Miguel was right. He'd traded drowning in guilt for drowning in work. Different symptoms, same disease. The breaking point came at a Foundation gala. Dom was giving the keynote speech, a talk about transformation through loss, about finding meaning in tragedy. He was halfway through when the room started spinning. His words slurred. He gripped the podium for balance. "I'm sorry," he said into the microphone. "I need to." He collapsed. Dom woke up in the hospital with Marcus and Miguel sitting beside his bed. "Severe exhaustion," the doctor explained. Dehydration, malnutrition, your body basically shutting down from sustained stress. Mr. Reeves, you're running yourself into the ground. The foundation will survive you taking a break, Marcus said firmly. Dom, you're no good to anyone dead. Miguel leaned forward. Mr. Reeves, do you remember what you told me when we first started working together? You said Charlie would want you to really live, not just survive. You're not living. You're performing living while actually just surviving in a different way. The truth cut deep. I don't know how to stop. Then learn, Miguel said simply. The same way you learned how to start again. One day at a time. The hospital mandated 2 weeks of rest. Dom's doctor referred him to a therapist specializing in complicated grief, Dr. Sarah Chen, a woman who'd lost her own child and understood the particular hell of parental loss. You're using productivity as an anesthetic, Dr. Chen said during their first session. Every time you feel grief trying to surface, you bury it under work. But grief doesn't disappear when you ignore it, it just waits. Then what do I do with it? You feel it. You let it exist without trying to fix it or transform it or make it useful. You just feel it. It sounded impossible. But Dom tried. He took a leave from the foundation, not retiring, just stepping back. He spent days doing nothing productive, walking, reading, sitting in his apartment watching rain. He let himself cry without purpose. He let himself miss Charlie without turning that missing into a mission. It was harder than any race he'd ever driven, any crisis he'd ever managed. Sitting with grief, letting it be uncomfortable, not rushing to make meaning from it, that required a different kind of courage. Miguel visited regularly, bringing homework and conversation. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just existed in comfortable silence. I'm sorry I collapsed at the gala, Dom said once. I scared everyone. You scared yourself, Miguel corrected, which maybe you needed. Sometimes we don't stop until our bodies force us to. When did you get so wise? When I had to grow up fast, Miguel smiled sadly. But Mr. Reeves, wisdom isn't the same as healing. I'm still sad about Rosa. I still miss her every day. I've just learned that being sad doesn't mean I can't also be other things. Happy sometimes, excited about school, hopeful about the future. Grief doesn't have to be the only thing I am. Dom absorbed this. I made grief my entire identity. First by drowning in it, then by fighting it through the foundation. But maybe you need to just be with it. Let it be part of you without being all of you. During his leave, Dom did something he'd been avoiding. He watched videos of Charlie. Not the memorial videos others had made, but the silly home videos. Charlie dancing badly to pop songs. Charlie laughing at his own terrible jokes, Charlie being a normal, goofy, wonderful kid. He cried through all of them. But he also laughed. Because Charlie had been funny. Charlie had been joyful. And remembering that joy didn't dishonor his death, it honored his life. Marcus came over one evening with pizza and beer. They sat on Dom's balcony watching the sunset, not talking about the foundation or grief or anything heavy. I forgot how to be a person, Dom said eventually. Not a grieving father or a foundation director or a former racer, just a person. So remember, Marcus said simply, little by little, day by day. After 6 weeks of rest and therapy and learning to just exist, Dom returned to the foundation part-time. But he set boundaries. No working weekends, no skipping meals, no answering crisis calls after 8 p.m. He hired an executive director to manage daily operations. He built a team strong enough to function without him being the center. You're looking better, Miguel observed at their next cemetery visit. I'm feeling better. Not healed, but better. Dom placed fresh flowers on Charlie's grave. I think I'm finally understanding what you tried to teach me a year ago. That surviving isn't enough. That Charlie would want me to actually live. So what does living look like? Dom thought about it. I don't know yet, but I'm ready to find out. 2 years after Miguel approached him at Charlie's grave, Dom stood at a high school graduation ceremony, watching a young man in a cap and gown accept an academic achievement award. Miguel had grown, Taller now, less skinny. The poverty-thin look replaced by the health that came from reliable meals and stability. His mother sat beside Dom crying happy tears. "He did it," Mrs. Ramirez whispered. "He's going to college." "He earned it," Dom said, pride swelling in his chest. Miguel had won a full scholarship to engineering school, partially through his own hard work and intelligence, partially through the education fund Dom had established, but mostly through his own remarkable determination. He'd maintained straight A's while working part-time, helping his brothers, and serving as the foundation's youth ambassador. After the ceremony, Miguel found them in the crowd, grinning. "I made it." "You did more than make it," Dom said, pulling him into a hug. "You conquered it." "We conquered it," Miguel corrected, "all of us together." That evening, the foundation hosted a celebration, not just for Miguel's graduation, but for the second anniversary of its founding. The ballroom was filled with families they'd helped, medical debts erased, grief counseling provided, futures secured. Dom gave a speech, but this time he didn't collapse. This time he stood steady, healthy, whole. "2 years ago, I was at my son's grave crying because I'd lost everything that mattered," he said to the crowd. "Then a boy with a bag of cans and more wisdom than any adult I knew told me something that changed my life. 'Sir, they're in the dump.' He was talking about my son's belongings, but he was really talking about me. I was in the dump, buried in grief, drowning in guilt, throwing away my own life because I couldn't figure out how to live without my son." He looked at Miguel. "This young man didn't just show me where to find my son's things. He showed me how to find myself. He taught me that grief can coexist with hope, that honoring the dead means actually living. That purpose comes not from running from pain, but from transforming it into something that helps others survive their own pain." The crowd applauded. Dom saw Todd Brennan in the back, sober now, 2 years clean, working as a volunteer counselor with the Foundation's Guilt Recovery Program. He saw Mrs. Ramirez and her younger sons. He saw Marcus and the racing crew who'd never given up on him. He saw the life he'd rebuilt from ruins. After the speeches and celebrations, Dom and Miguel walked to the cemetery together, their ritual, their grounding. They sat between Rosa's and Charlie's graves as the sun set, just 2 survivors honoring their lost loved ones. "College starts in 3 months, Miguel said. "I'm terrified." "Good. Being terrified means you care about it." Dom smiled. "You're going to do amazing things, Miguel. I know it. Because of you. Because you gave my family a chance when we had nothing. Because of you," Dom corrected. "Because you had the courage to approach a stranger and tell him a hard truth. You saved my life that day." "We saved each other," Miguel said. "That's what people do when they're brave enough to be vulnerable." Dom looked at his son's grave, still painful, still a wound that would never fully heal. But it no longer destroyed him to be here. He could sit with the grief, acknowledge it, and still feel other things too. Gratitude for the time they'd had, pride in who Charlie had been, hope for the future the Foundation was building in his name. "I think I'm ready," Dom said quietly. "Ready for what?" "To start racing again." Dom had been thinking about it for months, testing the idea against his grief, seeing if it felt like betrayal or healing. Not professionally, just for joy. The way I did before it became my career. The way Charlie loved it. Pure, uncomplicated, just the thrill of speed and skill. Miguel grinned. "Charlie would love that." "Yeah," Dom agreed. "Yeah, he would." If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more journeys where unexpected encounters transform loss into purpose and strangers become family. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Charlie Reeves Memorial Foundation had grown beyond Dom's wildest dreams. They'd helped over 1,000 families, partnered with hospitals across the country, created support networks that saved lives daily. Miguel graduated from engineering school and immediately joined the foundation's board. bringing fresh ideas and technological innovation. He designed an app that connected grieving families with resources, support groups, and each other, a digital community for people surviving the unsurvivable. Todd Brennan became the Foundation's lead counselor for secondary trauma victims, the people who witnessed tragedies, who carried guilt for circumstances beyond their control. He helped hundreds of people learn what Dom had learned, that sometimes terrible things happen and blame doesn't bring anyone back, but purpose can grow from pain. Dom started racing again, amateur events, charity races, the pure joy of driving without the pressure of competition. He'd bring Miguel's younger brothers along sometimes, teaching them about cars and speed and safety, giving them the mentorship Charlie had loved. Mrs. Ramirez married a kind man who treated her and her boys with respect. The family moved into a real house, not wealthy, but comfortable, stable, safe. Miguel's younger brothers thrived, both showing signs of their older brother's intelligence and compassion. And Dom learned to live again. Not the frantic, guilt-driven productivity of the Foundation's early days, not the drowning grief of those first months after Charlie's death, but actual living, dating occasionally, traveling, pursuing hobbies, having friends, experiencing joy without shame. On the 5th anniversary of Charlie's death, Dom stood at his son's grave with an unexpected crowd. Miguel and his family, Marcus and the crew, Todd and the Foundation staff, dozens of families they'd helped over the years. Charlie's death nearly destroyed me, Dom told them. And it would have if not for a boy with a bag of cans who had the courage to tell me the truth I needed to hear. That my son's things were in the dump, yes, but more importantly, that I was throwing away my own life. He looked at Miguel, now 22, confident, brilliant, kind. Miguel taught me that grief doesn't have a finish line, that healing isn't about moving on, but about moving forward while carrying what you've lost. That purpose can bloom from pain if you're brave enough to plant it. Dom placed fresh flowers on Charlie's grave, not with anguish now, but with love. My son lived for 7 years. He was kind, joyful, brave, and full of love. He died trying to help someone, which is exactly how he lived, always seeing someone in pain and wanting to fix it. I spent 2 years trying to make sense of senseless tragedy, and what I finally learned is this: there is no sense to make. There's just the choice to let loss define you or refine you, to let grief bury you or break you open until you're capable of holding more compassion than you ever imagined possible. Charlie's death broke me open. Miguel helped me rebuild. And together, all of us together, we've created something Charlie would be proud of. A community that catches people when they fall, that transforms pain into purpose, that proves love doesn't end when life does. The crowd was silent, except for the sounds of crying. Not despairing tears now, but the kind that comes from witnessing grace, from recognizing your own story in someone else's survival. As the sun set over the cemetery, Dom stood with his found family, honoring his lost son, and felt finally at peace. He'd survived the unsurvivable. He'd transformed grief into purpose. He'd learned that the boy who approached him at his son's grave that evening, skinny, poor, carrying his own loss with dignity and wisdom, had been carrying exactly what Dom needed to hear. That love doesn't protect us from pain, but it does give us the strength to survive it. And sometimes, if we're very brave and very lucky, it gives us the chance to transform our pain into something that helps others survive theirs. That was Charlie's legacy. That was Miguel's gift. That was Dom's purpose. And that, finally, beautifully, was enough.